Hi there, my name is Kendrick, and today I get to interview Dararith. So welcome, dude.
Hey, thanks for having me, Kendrick. Happy to be here. Looking forward to unlocking the secrets of the code.
Yeah, for sure. Can you please let everyone know what your full type is?
Yes, it's ESFP, masculine, feminine, SEFI, consume, sleep, play, blast, social type number three.
All right, and what did you think? How did you feel when you got your typing results?
I was somewhat surprised, but at the same time, I'm not. I double activated, consumed this thing from ground up. So I felt like at some point I was all these types, taking the MBTI tests. I got type INTJ a lot. So I mean, all the functions are there, like SEFI, NI, and TE, but I guess just the order was not what I thought. So of course, INTJ, the stereotype of the visionary that builds for the future. Well, I mean, who doesn't want that, right? So I think, ponder things, plan. But then, after studying ops a lot more, if I were to really be honest, I saw myself as consume, play, blast, sleep, just based on what I thought. But looking at the crowd, I think I generally do a lot more researching, which generally implies high consume. I really don't want to involve people that much if I can help it. So sometimes I was going with play last, but it could also mean probably last. So I never saw sleep as a savior. I don't think I fully understand too much about what that means. But after talking to Dave and so forth, was able to kind of understand it more because I feel like I don't really have a lot of boundaries, hence why I put it last. So didn't think it's possible to have consume and restrictions at the same time. So there's a lot of things I don't know about the code itself. And funny story, after I got typed, I gave Dave a whole bunch of questions and basically like why he said I'm like more processed, which suggests sleep energy as a savior. He was like, nope, not your tidal waves. You're going to have swings and blasts. And I was wondering why that may be the case. So I sent him a TLDR with underlines, bullet points, categories, all like down in proper flow. And it's basically saying like, hey, look at me, I'm blessed, right? And he was like, no, this is structured, ordered, known information about the self. Only the sleep consume or consume sleep will ever send me things like this. Everything else is just like bird chirps. He did answer all my questions and told me up front that it's kind of hard for him to keep up. And I think I just triggered or offended his consume last. I'm almost certain he skimmed it. I'm not offended or anything, but he did like answer all my questions because even I know like that's not how you move the tribe, right? Like I'm aware like in order to kind of get the information across, you gotta present it in different ways. So maybe that's some double deciding. But considering this is ops, to be honest, to get my unfiltered self out, he's the unlucky recipient that gets this unrestrained wrath. But yeah, looking at it overall, Kendrick, from the type itself, I guess I'm not as surprised, but maybe just the ordering. I never would have saw myself as a feeling savior, so that's something a little bit new for me.
Right, gotcha. Well, I think it made sense why you would think you were an INTJ or somewhere along that ballpark because you are an introvert as an ESFP, consume sleep like double introvert. And yeah, so that makes a lot of sense. The only thing that would be different though, because of the blast last, because usually INTJs are high blasters, so you're like a low blaster.
Right.
But it also makes sense what he said about you having that known information about self and its process, you know.
Right,
So
right, right.
yeah. And also if you have sleep as a savior, that means you have one animal that can use your NI, you know. So it's not like the NI is completely missing because you do have like one foot inside it with the sleep animal, especially the NIFI.
Yeah, and that's interesting that you brought that up with the sleep because it is like processing and it is like NI.
Yeah.
So, I learned from Dave that consume sleep. It's he said something about how it's a little bit more extrovert than consume play as savior. He said it's not as obvious from the coin because play would suggest like a lot of energy. He was saying like because sleep has this NI or SI ping, which means process and known information that I've already like thought of. So it's like, oh, it's consume sleep, like double inner world. Yeah, I can talk about it. So you can just go on to talk at will more. So he was comparing that to like the delayed effect that you would get from like the play savior, which suggests more pinging and more like talking it out loud. And just like as we were unpacking the code, just learning that, my frustration from the tribe, the DE tribe is because like I have consumed and sleep at introvert savior. So all the problems like I'm thinking everything internally, then it's like, wait, why is everyone not like getting on board with like the stuff that I'm doing? So it's more like extroverted triggers more than like so introverted. So that was just something interesting I learned based off like what you're saying.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, the consume play, especially the consume play sleep loss. Because Dave said they can talk
Right.
forever about nothing. Pretty much. Like, because like if you're info dumb, at least you would have, you
Just
know,
a little bit, right?
approach all the information from all sides. But when you're blast last also and you're high play, then the play makes you talk for a long time, but then it's completely unprocessed because consume and play are both open-ended animals wherein they're used for gathering essentially. So consumes gathering for the self and plays gathering from the tribe essentially, right? So, so it's like, oh, this person's just gathering. There's nothing organized. So in your case, the sleep is organized, you know?
Yeah, so one of the things that I've seen from your videos is some cognitive dissonance, and I don't know what it is, but maybe you can tell me a little bit more after we go through this interview. But like, I feel like there's a lot of cognitive dissonance with like the way like the functions or the animals or the social types all here. And maybe even so with like this consumed sleep being like, EP, but having sleep. So it's like one animal that's NI, which you generally probably won't see for an EP. But with the stuff that Dave and Shannon's working on, that the sleep, you can be like a jumper, or you can have like an animal that is a little bit against what you would normally expect from an EP. I think with an EP, you would probably expect like a consume play, some kind of consume play, right? So having consumed sleep means it's a little bit of a little bit of a difference. So yeah, just curious with all of this more. One thing I am certain of is you may see me like going back and forth, being uncertain about whether I have enough info or even the right info. So there's this theme of like perfectionism and skepticism,
Yeah.
which I suppose manifests itself as always needing to prove. So like Savior Gather, like I need to know more. Is what you're saying correct? Nothing against you. I just want to know, do I have all the right information? And I just feel like it's probably just going to be a death of me. It's just like there's not a narrowed down path of, all right, you got at some point you got to decide and like figure like the information you have is enough and maybe like proceed on to the next stuff. So
Yeah. Well, it's a double-edged sword because sometimes you can't get the information out until you blast because blast also teaches you information.
yeah,
So your blast last. So that would be like you can't consume enough that that you would know all the information until you blast it, because the blast essentially tests how much you actually know a subject
right,
or
right,
something.
right.
Right? So you might think in your head how perfect it is, but then when you blast and it doesn't come out quite as good as you have pictured it in your head, it's like, oh, maybe I don't know as much as I thought I did. It's one of those
Yeah,
tricky.
yeah, yeah. I completely agree with that because the best way to kind of learn something is also to teach it because once you teach it and put it out to the world and you're seeing what the other person is like how they're responding and then you're like, "Oh, this is where you get caught up." And okay, so you have to kind of think about the problem in a different way or think about how you're conveying the message in a different way. So yes, I completely agree with you that, when you're teaching, usually you get a lot more from it. So there's only so much you can do in an introverted world on your own of consuming something. At some point, you have to like put it out to the real world, test it,
Yeah.
and see what you get.
Yeah, and you have TE also, right? So for you to like do the problem solving stuff or figuring things out, it's gonna be with the tribe. The thinking is extroverted, right? So you
Mm,
can only
right,
do
right.
so much in your head.
Only do so much. Yes, yes.
Yeah, yeah. The emotional stuff, of course, you would do on your own because it's FI. But
Right, right.
yeah. um, why don't we go through your animals? Let's start with your first one. The most obvious one here is double masculine, double activated SF consume first. So this is like it's not just double activated, it's double masculine. So it's aggressive consume.
Yeah. I really had to think about this for a long time, Kendrick. I mean, I only just got my type back recently, as you may know. Just slight tangent here too. I felt like, I gave Dave and Shan my video, and in just like a couple of days, they gave it back to me. So I felt like, okay, either I'm like nothing special. This is just like another pretty standard type, So it made me feel like a lot more confident, like, okay, the stuff that they're saying really, really is like legitimate. I mean, they're comparing me across the spectrum. So I had to really think about like instead of trying to argue against it, because usually my brain is very skeptical. It's like, oh, am I really sure this is what they're saying? Is it really true? But now I'm like, okay, let's just go in. They type me really quickly, like this is pretty good. So double activated, double masculine, SF consume. And then the more I think about like I can see my FI. I had a back and forth email exchange with Dave, and there are a lot of things where I'm like, okay, this is my point of view. This is what I want to do. Sometimes people agree, sometimes they don't. Screw what they think. And then all of a sudden I wonder like wait, why do I not like what like some people are doing? It's because I'm so fixated on like, okay, this is the way like I want to do things. And even like in work or in my personal life, I'm always thinking, okay, well, I don't want to hear anyone's opinion yet. I want to know what my opinion is first. Like, for example, it could just be something like, do you like this food? I don't want to go around thinking, okay, what do you guys think? Did you like the steak? Did you like the steak? Did you like the, oh, okay, I guess the steak is good, right? A lot of people like the steak. But instead, I'm like, oh, I don't want to hear any of that. I just want to know what I think of it first. Once I hear it and I understand it, then it's like, okay, now let's go and see what the tribe thinks. What, like understand more about and look at the points and look at the arguments or whatever they want from that. But it's more like I want to listen to myself first and I take it for what it is. And I don't really try to change people's perspective. Maybe that's the feminine extroverted thinking. I'm just like, okay, well, I guess if that works, like if sure, like that's great. I just know where I stand and I feel comfortable knowing where I stand. They might try to persuade it, and that's fine too. Like maybe I can be swayed. Maybe I don't have all the right information. Maybe that's the consume that's really high that is saying, wait, check. Like, is this updated information? Like, do I want to change my belief or anything? Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but more often than not, I feel pretty I guess, solid with this. And I never really thought of myself being a feeler type. So that was, again, like I'm still processing this. I'm still trying to understand it more. But if I were to pinpoint like that masculinity for the introverted feeling, that's where I would say it is. The masculine extroverted sensing, I'm still trying to wrap my head around that because I forget a lot of things, Kendrick. Like I just don't remember like dates and time. Like even earlier today, I was like, okay, so we're gonna go to this restaurant, and my wife's like, no, this is a store, and I'm like, oh, right, it's. I mean, you kind of get what I'm saying. It's a it's a warehouse that has stuff, but so that's when I have to kind of think about it a little bit more, like understanding, like maybe something with a sensory where I am like very fixed, rigid, and there's more to it with like audio and kinesthetic, which maybe we can uh, you can help share some more about what they all mean and stuff, and maybe I can kind of relate to it. So I can't expand too much on the masculine extroverted sensing, but I do see the masculine introverted feeling more.
Sure.
And also with like but combining the two together, I mean, I guess it's a whole thing to think about.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to unpack based on what you said. So the first thing is, it sounds like you don't want anyone to influence your FI, for example, when you're tasting the steak. So you want to know yours first, so that
Right, right.
it's a pure opinion and not tainted by the
Yes,
tribe.
yes,
And
yes.
then once you know what it is, and then you can go see other people's perspective, and it's okay.
Because like you're watching a movie, right? And you don't want like someone to give like all that information. You just want to like decide and think about it, form your own opinion yourself. And
Yeah.
then it's like, okay, so what does everyone think, right? So it's kind of more on that same line of I just want to see and experience it for myself. And then I'm willing to change my mind anytime. I just don't want it to be tainted, Kendrick. Like I just don't.
Yeah, I think as a demon feeler, personally, I don't mind people telling me their opinion because I'll watch it or try the food, and I can come back later and I'm just gonna be, by the way, you can swear so much in this interview.
Okay.
Uh so a day later I can be like, you know what? You're fucking wrong, you know? So it's kind of like, it's still an EP, right? It's still rebellious, but
Wait,
it's
are you a demon feeler? I thought you're
I'm a demon feeler, yeah. I'm not the
oh right,
traditional.
right, because you're team, but you're masculine. Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
I'm NETE, not NEFI, as an ESFP.
Right.
So I'm
Gotcha.
not yeah, but it seems like I know my feeling because my inner world is double masculine, so it's
But you're willing to be like, hold on, before I check my own feelings, yeah, I'll go in and do the thing and see what the tribe's opinion and their thoughts and how things work. And then I will ultimately decide like, screw that or whatnot,
well
right?
because I have savior of play, right? So I want
Yeah.
to banter with
You
the
want to
tribe
do
later
that.
on. So I'll be like, so I'm storing their opinion, but I'm not letting it influence me. I'm just storing it. right? I'm like, oh, this friend said that this movie is good. This friend said it was bad. Okay, I'm gonna go watch the movie now and let's see.
Right, right.
I'll watch it, and then my FI will decide, yeah, I loved it, or no, I fucking hated it, right? And then later on, I come back, it's like, no, you even have fucking taste in movies, you know? So it's like I'm ready to banter with my friends, right? Like
Okay.
it's ready, you know. So it's that's why, because I'm saying you're playing, so I'm always thinking about other
Mhm.
people, right? You know,
Amazing.
it's good and bad. It has pros and cons, you know. But we can talk about that later also when we get to play. But
Okay.
yeah. So and then the other thing that you said about your sexual modality thing, about you're not quite sure yet. Dave and Shan did admit that they only get the sexual modalities 60% right, uh,
Oh,
via video typing, because they said it's easier to see in person than via video. So potentially you could be double feminine and you have double masculine inner world, and that's why you can see your NI so well, potentially, you know.
maybe.
So something that you might want to go back to them later on, but we can talk about it right now, actually. So, um, you know, audio kinesthetic is pretty much, learning from hearing, and also, also from
Hmm.
that physical world, essentially, like sports or movement, body movement and whatnot, So, but if you were tester and visual, then it would be based on smell and taste, and then the second part would be visual, like learning through seeing or visualizing.
Right.
Do you know where you're stronger in that aspect?
Well, I don't know if there's any bias there. So a couple of things. So bias as in, I sent, Dave like my YouTube channel where I play music and all that stuff. So
Okay,
it was just like audio a little bit more forward, but I
sure.
can't really hear things well. I have to turn up the volume and stuff. So, but I know it's also not really on ability. It's on whether you prefer it or not, I guess, or how you learn.
Yeah,
And I noticed like when I'm watching movies, for example, I just need to have the subtitles on. And the moment I have the subtitles on, it's like I learn it so much faster. It's because I'm reading it really fast, like the subtitles,
yeah,
like over and over, like many, like really quickly, that I'm already processing it several times already before it's even like done to the next scene. So it's I'm able to see things through my periphery like very, very well and like remember it. And I remember like the taste of things. I remember like the experience of something. So it's a part of me feels like that may play a role.
yeah.
Um and but a case for the audio would be anytime, I don't know if this is just me or anyone else, but if you play a music some kind of song, it would bring me back to that moment in time where I remembered listening to it. So it could be like a song from, that you heard in high school or something, and you only heard it at that time. So then when you hear it, you remember, oh, I was sitting in this class doing this, doing such and such. I feel like that would suggest more audio as well. So I really don't know, Kendrick.
Well, dude, the tricky thing is, double feminine people, they have audio third, so it's not missing. So they
Okay.
have access to it, right? And then so I think the better cross check here would be the visual, because
Mm,
audio people have trouble visualizing. Like I have trouble, like it's not until you're older as an audio person where the visual starts to kick in. But
mm.
usually when you're younger, visualization is extremely hard. So how are you when it comes to visualization?
I mean, I would like to think I'm good. I don't know. How would one go about figuring that out?
Yeah, can you visualize something, and then when you visualize something, emotions that is attached to that that vision or that image, or would also come forth, like for example, like you remember, like, oh, can you visualize like a time um that you, let's say, had an interaction with somebody, and can you visualize that person exactly how they look like in that moment, everything, can you visualize everything, and then can you also visualize how you felt, can you visualize like the
Mhm.
mood, the scene?
I can definitely play back those scenes.
Yeah, but is
It's
it
a
vivid?
very difficult one because yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Is it vivid? Is it like very detailed? Like a true visual would, or
Now it's just kind of slicing hairs and figuring out which one is the bigger imbalance or which one is the stronger.
true?
I
Yeah.
don't know. And it is, especially if it's something that I don't want to remember. Because if it is like a bad like bad scene or bad something bad that happened in the past. It's like, okay, I do remember the scene, and I'm like, okay, well, I don't want to remember it. And then of course, people don't want to dwell on some of those things if you
Sure.
could help it. Um, so
Well,
I don't know.
okay, this is a little bit of an anecdote, but I have found this to be true based on the people that I have interviewed. So it's just you could say it's a supporting document, not like the main thing. But do you listen to audiobooks?
I don't like to podcasts and audiobooks and stuff like that. I feel like it's too slow. I just like just get to it. I want to like get to the right points. But I do listen to like a lot of YouTube videos and stuff like that in the background. Like I watch a lot of your YouTube video interviews and stuff. It's easy to just put it on and just kind of listen and you
That's what
take it
everyone
whatever.
does.
Right, right. Like
Or
it's
like
kind of
they told me they cook and they just have it on and they just listen.
yeah, I'm part of that crowd. You cook and you have it on, and it's really you're taking what you can get. Versus the audiobook, for some reason, more like a chapter one. Like this is my life begins, and it's just so
Too slow.
it takes so long. I just want to put it in like two times the speed or something like that, and cut out
Sure.
the ads or whatever. So maybe it's less on the fact that the audio itself, but more on like the formatting, the structure, and so forth.
Oh,
But it can also suggest like the fact that it triggers me so much means that I do like get something from it is because I'm trying to learn from it and it's wasting my time with like this unnecessary ad or titles and all that stuff when we just jump into it.
yeah.
So
Well, fair enough. I
anyway,
mean,
what were you gonna say with
no, I
audiobook?
get what you said. I do think audiobooks are too slow. I always put it at like 1.5x or 2x, depending who's talking. But when you are having it in the background, are you able to pick up the words, the sensory words? Are you able to retain it just doing it? Or like for me, I don't really need subtitles when I watch stuff because because I'm audio, right? So I pick it up so hard and strong. Like that's my best way to learn actually is auditory, right? But like I don't need to see it like the words per se for me to retain it. So I have noticed that a lot of people who are audio do have this ability to just hear like just the hearing itself is enough for a lot of things.
Yeah,
Uh,
I would say you're probably right about that. I think I do retain some of it. But maybe it's just the EP-ness. Like mine is just chaotic, running like on
sure.
overdrive all the time, like consuming a
Yeah.
lot of different things, going channel changing and stuff. So you take whatever you can get. And especially with the audio, maybe I do like retain a lot of stuff. I don't think I have any particular like visual sense, at least for audio. We're listening to audiobooks and stuff. So I don't really know for sure there, but I do at least understand like the general concept or general idea that's being put across. And a part of me is going back and listening to, okay, so he's talking about like let's just say, for example, if you're listening to like a self-help book, like they're talking about validation of feelings or something like that. And you're like, okay, so this is that theme. Let me just fixate on it and let me hear what like their idea is on it. So maybe the chapters do help when you're like, hey, this is we're gonna be talking about string theory right now. And it's like, okay, he's going to talk about that. So I'm going to hone in on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess I would say I do learn from that as well. I just don't know which one is, stronger or more to my type. But we don't have to unpack it all today. I think it's
Sure.
something that I'll process more over time.
Sure. That's fair. We'll just go with your default typing then. And then second animal is sleep. This is the big one. It's NF. So you are going to have a strong
Right.
NF inner world, and a lot of ESFPs mistype themselves as an ENFP or INFJ or something, and then they start going
Mhm.
batshit crazy when they're like, "I'm not an ESFP. You're wrong. Fuck you, Dave and Shan." And it's like, but then it's like, I'm an NF, and I'm like, you are NF. Your inner world's NF. You have NF sleep. Of course, you feel NF. Like,
Right.
no shit. Like it's like a lot of like ESTPs, for example, they'll think like they're lead NT, right? And then I'm
Right.
like, it's because you have NT sleep. Like your sleep animal is dictating, like, of course you feel that way. That's how you are inside. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
so you have it in a savior state. You have NF sleep. Um, so let's unpack that. The first one is you have it in a savior state. So NIFI. And NI is patterns, reoccurring patterns, right? And then besides, and it's also future projecting, which we'll talk about in a second. And then FI is obviously, your internal values, your emotions. Emotions are personal. So
Right.
let's go with the first one. what is the recurring emotion that you would say you have experienced in your life that keeps coming back? Like this feeling keeps coming back, you know? Be
Um,
bad or good, you know?
bad usually,
Yeah,
and generally big picture. And there was something that you said in one of the interviews about something about NI being negative and like NE seeing a lot of possibilities and being future focused. So you probably found like one good positive outlook. And NI generally is like more pessimistic. And
yeah,
so NI with the FI, it's just if I were to put it together, I tend to think about like, when I'm like alone, dark, like just lights off, or like in the middle of the night or something like that. I keep thinking about like why are we here? Like what's motivating us to continue? It's not too abstract to believe that we all came in like for example, you can zoom out and zoom in and realize similar emotions. So the reoccurring emotions that I'm talking about here is like empathy. Like, why are we here? Like, what's motivating us to continue? So if you zoom out, you realize that, we're all the same. We're all same chemical composition, same molecular makeups, all that stuff. And then it's easy to look at it that way. But if you zoom in, I find it a little bit more interesting. When you zoom in, you know that no one is actually like living in our shoes. You get the same result if you zoom out or zoom in. Because zoom out, you can empathize and be like, oh yes, we're all the same, we're all humans, we're all, all that stuff. And if you zoom in, it's a little bit interesting in the sense where it's like no one's actually living in our shoes. We're completely like a unique perspective. So how can anyone judge us? Like so like something about Oprah in one of your videos. I think your Social Type 3 video or something like that.
sure.
About Oprah giving advice without actually living it, like marriage, kids, or whatever.
Oh,
Uh,
that's a different video, but it's
or
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just
but
forgetting
yeah.
which one I
I
can.
get what you're saying though, but keep going.
So it's not that it's not possible, like because you're gonna have like good coaches without ever like being physically fit and all that stuff. You just know how to teach, right? But when you look at it and zooming out, I find comfort in knowing that I can, like, if I were to say Kendrick, for your specific year, born of this type, physical attributes, your family experiences, your upbringing, down to the intricate and intimate level it's just like, even all the little like whether you're acing a test or getting into a car accident, how it changed you, like all those things, like no one can really judge you for like the decisions you make. So isn't it to our best interest to sort of lean on that more and understand like, hey, we all have it really, really hard. We can like come together from this and learn from it. Like we should be doing more listening because I can validate someone more easily looking at those situations. And I'm no means like saying like I have everything all together. I have my own like fair share of problems with both people and things. I'm just thinking like uh when it comes to like understanding someone's emotions and like what they've gone through, it's very sometimes very easy to be like, oh, you can compare, right? Because FIs like to compare. It's like, oh yeah, I've had it harder, or oh, there's like starving children in Africa, or there's, you can say so many things that it kind of dismisses and invalidates an experience because like what else is next? But if you're like looking at it to the zoom in degree of like a person's experience and knowing like, what, it like we all have such like a unique and very, it's our own life, it's our own journey, that let's lean into it and like empathize and understand each other more. So that emotion of empathy keeps coming back. I don't admit to always doing a good job of it because sometimes like, when you're living in the short term, you're like, okay, you just like you just keep swiping. You just like, all right, this is you just kind of rat off the story, another person's story. But here I want to like kind of embrace it. So every time when I go into this, like, let's think about life, let's think about where I want to go. Let's think about like what's causing all these problems. Oh, like empathy. Can we understand each other better? So I would say my NF sleep generally leads to those types of empathetic type of experiences.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, part of it also sounds like that's how you want people to treat you. That's why you are zoning in into that because maybe you felt like people have invalidated your feelings or they kind of just brush you off when they should have taken a deeper deep dive to understand you, you know? So that's what it sounds like to me, which is not, it's just a good thing, of course. But obviously, as a human too, there's so many people like you can't give everyone that deep dive of empathy too because it's draining. So usually that's reserved for close family and friends, right? You know, you know. So Okay, that's cool. So that's cool that you know at least that what your NIFI recurring emotional pattern is. That's a really good thing. That's why you're saver sleep, because you're aware, right? Like you did, you said it right away, right? Like it was quick. You thought about this before.
Well, a part of me is more like, what else? What if this isn't the thing, right? What, I can go on with like motivation. I go on with like, so
Yeah,
many other like topics, but like the one that just keeps coming up was like, you just need to understand each other better,
yeah,
have, shared values and all that stuff. But anyway, yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's a good one. It's a good one for sure. It sounds like it's also your mantra, also your code, your end of code.
I don't know if I ever think about it like
Do you have one?
a mantra.
A code? I'll give you some examples. You probably heard me say it already in some interviews.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, Jocko Willing, discipline equals freedom. What's his name again? I always forget his name. The CEO of Apple before. What's his name again? I'm so bad with names. Like
Steve Jobs
Steve Jobs. Yeah, like
or
Steve
no,
Jobs
no,
is
no.
yeah. So his is stay curious. What was it again? Oh my God, I forgot. Some
Oh
stay.
yeah, 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 like the stay curious, stay foolish, stay
Yeah, yeah,
stay
yeah,
hungry,
yeah. Yeah,
stay.
stay. Yeah, exactly. That one. That one's a good one
Yeah.
for an IJ actually specifically because stay curious means gather, and
Right,
then
right, right,
stay foolish means make mistakes, and have chaos, which is like very growth mindset for an IJ to have as a code, right? And then
right.
David Goggins have a callous mind, right? It means like have
I
so much
haven't heard
have so much bad experience that your mind is so toughened up that
that.
nothing can hurt you, right? You know.
Okay.
So that's kind of his thing. That's why he does those like ultra marathons all the time where he's like suffering. It's
Yeah, that's
yeah.
insane. Kudos to him for being able to do that.
Yeah.
I like the one from Elon.
Well,
I don't know how
he's an INTP, but you can copy it. It's okay. But
it's the when something is important enough, you do it. Something like if the odds are not in your favor, like if it's against you, like basically like the idea is if something is important, like you just do it. And I think that's probably speaks
yeah,
to, or the way I see it, it's more like introverted feeling. Like, yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, I want to value myself. I want to like these are the things that I think about. Like, of
sure.
course, you want to prioritize the things that's most important. And even if it's hard, you do it. You suck it up. You do it. Like that's like you know what it is. So figure out what it takes to make things work, right?
Yeah.
Um, I also like the one from Jimi Hendrix. He says, "I'm the one that's got to die when it's time for me to die. So let me live my life the way I want to." So
I like that
I
one.
don't know what it's basically probably falls in line with that same NF mantra. So of what we talked about before. Um, so before ops, like I would see myself oftentimes stuck on like two or three paths because I'm like double activated consume like without even knowing it, right?
Yeah.
And I don't know which is the better one. So I researched one thing and I'm like, okay, should I do this thing to an insane degree? I found a lot of good merits. And then I would go to do the other thing. I'm like, okay, well, there's a lot of good merits here too. So the research is clear. Like I don't know which one is good, right? Like you're just stuck with like two things. And so that's part of the OE, right? You want to continue to gather, like you want it such that is a very clear answer. So I find myself saying a lot, if a choice is hard, it's because like both paths hold value. So clarity comes when one choice is clearly better. So when it doesn't, just pick and progress. So either way you win. So I just remember like uh having like two jobs lined up. And I was talking to a friend of mine. I was like, okay, so should I go for this one? This one has these benefits and all that stuff. And there's the other one that also has like these like other benefits and stuff. Like I don't know which one to pick. And he's just sitting there like, man, look at this guy. Like I'm sitting here without a job, and this guy has like two job opportunities. So it's very insensitive, but at the same time, it's like, oh, at that point, I'm like, okay, you know what? The
They're
fact
both
that I'm
good.
yeah, I'm such an idiot, right? I'm such an idiot. So I always think the fact that I have such a hard time picking means that, if there's an obvious decision, it requires no kind of deliberation. Like either way you win. So when one option is clearly superior, like if you know like, or you want $1 million or you want $1, well, it's easy. You'll pick it right away. So if there's a difficult decision, it implies there's a comparable value. So if two or more options seem equally compelling, it suggests that neither is significantly worse, making a choice just a matter of preference than necessity. So overanalyzing this leads to stagnation since there's no option that is like distinctly better. So spending a lot of excessive time just has a lot of diminished, like basically over consuming just has diminishing returns. So picking one will lead to a good outcome generally. So maybe that's kind of like a mantra. And I was watching Alex Hormozy. I know he also has Consume Savior, and he made me feel pretty good because he was like, hesitation is not necessarily a bad thing because it means that whatever skill or characteristic that we have is not it's lacking, that whatever it is that we're lacking from making that choice, it will make us better in the long run. So it would suggest that if this is the hesitation and if this outcome was painful enough, then I would kind of like learn from that decision and make a better one next time. So it's basically being harder on yourself. Like if you screw this up, then you're gonna learn from it at some point, and you'll just make the a better choice later in the future. If you pick the wrong job, you'll kind of learn from that in the future. So the fact that you're having this problem means that just pick one. Either way, you win. So I would say like that's another mantra. Like if you have two difficult decisions to make, just pick one of them. You're gonna win.
Right. I think this is a good segue to what you said earlier also about cognitive dissonance, because I picked up some stuff based on what you just said right now. So you're a social type 3, but you are an EP. So those are already contradictory because social type 3 is very IJ-like, you know. So that's why you have the cognitive dissonance. Um, and then also when you were talking about like the two job prospects that you had just now, you were also saying, oh, they both have good benefits. I was zooming in on the word benefits. So Dave and Chan said that number threes love the work-life balance thing. Um, can you share a little bit about that? Because I'm really curious, like what's going on with the number threes and fours. Because I'm a two, so I
Right, right.
I completely see it differently. But I'd love to compare because I'm curious what that other world looks like. You know,
I mean, I wish I can share. So, I guess maybe social type three, like the social type they said is easier to pick apart.
easy, yeah,
Dave said something like, usually this is like a life can't like you would it's like a two like 2 decade type of candle that you will like see like the growth and the like the direction of what
sure.
success means to a person, what happiness means. Because the ones would see it differently, a two, three, four, right? They would all see it differently for what success means. Um, I'm still like figuring this thing out, Kendrick, because I haven't learned too much about the social types. I did look a little bit more on social type three because I mean the fact that I thought I was an IJ, which is aligned with social type three, means
Yeah,
that it's already there's some dissonance there because I'm in the EP.
yeah.
Um,
You want a channel change, but then but then your social wants you to specialize. So it's
Right.
like,
So all I can say is from a number three, there is some flex in the sense where can you have flex on responsibility? Because the two is more of a general and the three is a specialist. Because there's some flex that I have on like generalizing on some stuff. But if there's one thing that comes back like very, very often, and I think this is what David Shan picked up in my typing video, is that I like to really zoom in on like a few different things.
yeah,
Um, and just consume the hell out of it, right?
sure.
And so that would suggest like, okay, you just want to do this one thing for a very long time. And I can already go crazy with like the different pathways within that. So I don't need like another thing, like a completely different project that would just derail me. If it's related to that same topic and same whatever you want to call that, like same occupation or same thing that you're trying to accomplish, then if it's not related, then you don't want to do it. So all I can say with the specializing is I see myself having that, and I think probably why I type myself, as an IJ from the beginning. Um, Not sure if I answered your question, but I mean I can talk about it a little bit more. But you just want to know like how is it like for me as a three? Is a little bit different from you as a two. Um,
Yeah. Well, you know what? Let me give you some example. I think we might make it easier. Okay. Let's do some play, you know, so just to make it
yeah, let's
easier.
go for it. Yep, yep, I'm all for it.
Yeah, so we'll use okay. So I have friends that is all different social types. I have friends that are ones, twos, threes, and fours, and everyone's life is completely different. I find it very interesting because I love personality type, right? So I'd love like see like, oh wow, so this is how you think about stuff. Interesting, right? You know, like for example, like I play mobile games, right? And I'm part of like a guild, right?
Which one
And
do you play?
it's called Doomsday Last Survivor. It's a zombie game, and then it's like, so we're, there's like PvP events, there's raids, you could say,
Mm.
and whatnot. So, I'm a typical two. So I wanted to be a three. I just wanted to specialize and be like a strong fighter. But then now I'm like one of the leaders in the guild, and now I'm like managing people. I'm like, oh God, and then there's like, I'm like, I really fought against, like, I don't want this to happen. But I'm like, after a while playing it, I was like, oh my God, people are so stupid. They're so dumb. They're like, no offense, but like they're thinking so, like, just so micro. But like, like, for example, when you go to a raid, there's different aspects of it. There's diplomacy. So if you say one bad thing to the chat, then this other organization will be upset, and then they'll come after you, so I'm like thinking about like all the pieces that's happening, right? I'm thinking about my members. I'm like, this person is good at this, like, if you play any game, there's like a tank, usually there's a healer,
Right, right, right.
all that shit, right? So I'm like, okay, this person is good at this role, this person's good at this role, so I have to move the pieces together. Some people might get
Specialized.
that because they don't feel like significant, especially if there are threes want to feel significant, right? Because they have the flex. So they're like, they don't want to. So I had to manage all those, like, personas also, like ego. If I'm dealing with a one and a three, they're gonna be butt hurt. So I have to be careful when I talk to them because they're not gonna be able to take feedback very easily, right? So I'm like juggling so much stuff at all time. But then that's how we do pretty well in events, because like then I'm able to see it in the big picture
Yeah.
and manage all this. But then people will come to me, right, in the game, for example, like, hey, I didn't get enough rewards, especially, like, maybe like a three or four will come up to me, right? I didn't get enough rewards. I'm like, yeah, but did you do XYZ to earn this reward? You know, and they're like, I deserve it. We're friends. I'm like, yes, this is a four saying this, you know. I'm like, yes, but this other person did 10x what you did. So they earned it more than you did. So
Huh.
you can't get as much rewards as this person because you didn't put the work in, So it's like,
And it really say that? Like, is it that like objective where you can see like some stats or something like that where you can say, oh, this person did
well, so the
more
way,
output or
because I'm not like new to, I really didn't want to do this because I did it in the past when I was younger. Like, I'm
okay.
I'm always the guild leader when I was a kid. Like, I played MMORPG. I'm always the guild leader, right? Always. It just happens. Like, people just, oh, you're the leader, and I'm like, what? Like, I don't want to be the leader. I want to be a dumbass that's like having fun. I don't want responsibility I'm like, fine, okay.
Okay.
And so, like, I know in the past, like, you have to objectively track stuff, otherwise people will be upset. They're like, you're biased, your favoritism, all blah blah blah, all this shit. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna track everything. So now that I've made this, like, guild, like one of the leaders in this organization, um, when we go on raids, I have a member that takes a screenshot of every person that joins, like, we call it rallies in Garrison. I
Mhm.
have someone that takes a screenshot of everyone that enters it and participate. They were like, so someone comes to me, like, this person got this much gold, I didn't. Why? I'm like, oh, really? Look at this event. We have screenshots of you not entering anything. Okay, your points is also low, and you have a bad attitude, so you get jack shit. And if you get upset,
Mm.
fuck you, I don't care. Go quit. Like, it's like, so now I have evidence for everything to track everything.
It's
And but
good.
it's
It's good.
it's also good for people that work hard, and they have good attitude because everything's also tracked in their favor, right? So it's like, nope, nope. You just, if they ask, can I have more gold? I'm like, you totally earned it. You participated in X amount of events. You have a good attitude, and you have high points. So, you know,
Right.
so I'm
Are
looking.
those criteria like laid out ahead of time? Like, hey, look, I'm gonna
I
be
did. I
tracking
did.
this
I
thing.
sent
Like,
I sent out an email like, this is, you want extra gold. This is what you need to do. And there's idiots, consume last. Probably no offense, consume last people, but they didn't read the mail because they didn't want to consume. So, like, I'm like, this is straightforward. You want to get rewarded? Here's the criteria. It's upfront. Okay.
because I mean, the way you make it sound like it's like, all right, game on, Kendrick. Like you giving me like that criteria, and me as a Soch type 3, it's like, all right, what do I gotta do to hit all of these checklists, these goals?
Exactly
And
right.
that's it. And that's it. Like if I didn't, I'm like, oh man, like I probably missed this one or this one or this one. Like, or if I did hit all of them, now I'm gonna be like, hey, just want to check in with you, Kendrick. Like I actually like maxed out all the things that
Yeah, and then if
you
you
did.
did, I'm
So
like,
right.
yeah, of course, it's like, if you're in management or leadership, you're gonna miss a few by accident, and then so
Right,
it's
right.
fine, it happens, right? And it's like, oh shit, okay, yeah, no, you're right, we do have it, I've seen it, and go ahead, here you go, right? So it's fine, right? But for me personally, though, I have more trouble with the ones and fours than the
I
threes.
see.
Yeah, because
Oh,
the ones
okay,
the
okay.
ones
I
have the
get
huge ego, so I'm dealing with the ego, right? they're making bad decisions because their ego cannot handle the fact that they're not the most significant, you know.
Ah,
Well, the threes are okay with having like a specific role where they're the best at, and they're gonna try
yeah.
to do their best at it. And as a two,
Yep.
I'm like, I really appreciate that. And the fourth be like, it's not fair. I didn't get my share. I'm like, you didn't earn it. You look at you didn't do shit, like, like, you know. So I'm like, and I'm like, also fourth, they have the lowest drive, right? So I'm like, you also didn't perform well in this event, like you're
Hey, you
so
had a good
so
time, right? Like we all had fun playing. Like,
yeah, no, I mean,
maybe,
like, it's great. I love having you here because you're friendly. You have to save your
yeah,
friends to the max, right? But like, you have to perform too,
yes,
So it's like there's like and then threes they perform, right? Because they don't want to look bad, but they're not like a one where like the ego goes out of control. It's like, oh, they're bounced with the friends coin in the middle, right? So they have enough. They're like, oh no, I don't want to ruffle the feathers also, but I want to do well, but I don't want to ruffle the feathers, It's like
right. So it seems like the two and the threes where they would roll around and like it's generally like they're speaking the same kind of language there.
it's complementary because the threes don't want to do what the twos are doing, and the twos don't want to do what the threes doing. So it's like, oh yeah, we're pals then. Like but they also butt heads if they don't have enough empathy. It's like what you said at the start, right? So for
Right.
the twos, it's like, oh, the criteria were not clear. So how is it fair for the number threes to achieve it if they're not even clear, right?
Hmm.
Right. And so like you need to have, and plus doing specialist work is hard, So if you haven't tried what the specialist has done to empathize with what they're going through, how can you you know exactly what's going on in their life and their work if you haven't been there, right? Because
Right.
it's a lot of work. That's why I do a lot of special work myself, because I would need to have empathy for the three, right? But in the threes, they also need to try different roles and see how hard it is to be a to manage and like juggle all these pieces. So they have empathy for the two and be like, oh yeah, you know what you're doing is not easy. Cut you some slack, but can we talk about it? And communication is the key for everything, right? So, so
Yeah,
um,
I mean, thinking about it more, like the key word there being management. Like there's people management, there's project management, task management, all kinds of like
yeah,
management, right? And I was fortunate to be in a management role
sure,
in my last job that I had, and wow, like I learned so much of like how much work you have to do, and it's very like you're like the unsung hero because you don't really like no one's gonna reward you for anything if you do well
sure,
because it goes to the team. But if things go bad, like it's not gonna be on your teammates, it's really gonna be on that manager because
right,
they are overseeing all that stuff.
yeah,
And it's also a little bit more unfair if like because sometimes they kind of blur the lines between like if you're a people management versus like doing like some project management or whatever,
sure,
and you start to do some of the individual contributor work as well. So now you're like this team lead that is actually doing the like if you're playing a tank or whatever, and you're also like tasked with, I gotta specialize my role as a tank, and I gotta like commandeer. Now you're doing two functions. Like for me as a savior, like social type three, I'm like, no, 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 can't do that. That's too much. Like, like where am I gonna go? Am I gonna be more like there's gonna be some conflict of interest? Like I can't do that. And I start to see that more as I start going into that management because then you have to start dealing with like uh it could even be things that not even related to like the thing that you're focused on. Like it could just be like personal stuff. Like maybe even in the game concept, oh, like I didn't get my key bindings correct, or like, oh, my game quit out. Like it has nothing to do with the strategy of the game, but
right,
you're still responsible for it. So you have to think about all these like this whole thing. So I can really like empathize with like the twos for having to do that. And for me to see that more as a three, I would say like you would have to see the generalist as a type of specialist. Like I'm specializing in this activity of like managing all these pieces and getting like the glue for everyone together.
right,
Um, because it is like if you try to do it, you see like how much work goes into it, and it's very like yeah, like how can someone like quantify or characterize what you do? Like what is the work you're doing? You're
yeah,
picking up the slack for for things that you may not even have imagined. Like, but you're responsible for it. You're really like the glue. Like if it falls a certain way, you have to pick it up and like make it work. So I mean, I'm not really saying anything new here other than like I completely respect like the twos were being able to handle that. If it were me, I would just like to fixate on one thing and just try to be like really good at it. Like just play my little part in something big, right? Like I know like the cogs, the wheels and all that stuff, the gears are all spinning. I just want to be like this. this little piece. I'm gonna do a very good job of it and make that whole like engine run really well.
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. That's yeah, you totally understand the dynamic, which is I mean, which is awesome, you know, because like I think that's where twos and threes butt heads 100% because they don't understand what's going on with the other person's lives. But when you do, then you're like, oh shit, you know. Like I do a lot of like I
Uh,
work in fitness for 10 years, right? Like as a trainer. So I know what's going on with like a fitness staff. So if I become a fitness manager, for example, I know exactly how everything works. Like I know how to teach group fitness, I know how to teach personal training, teaching seniors, whatever. But like I understand like each of the aspect. I've been in the trenches with those guys, right? And I know how
yeah.
hard it is, like how exhausting it is to be teaching one after another too. So it's like okay, you know, so and then if you're three and then you've been in a two position before, you're like, you know, that guy, I don't want to do what he's doing because like he has he or she has to be the bad guy. They have to do things that they don't want to do because you know you have to be the bad guy as a two or if you're a manager, sorry, it doesn't matter what type you are, right? You have to do things that are bad guy like, and people think you're an asshole, but it's like, do you think they want to do that? They rather just be friends with everyone, obviously, right?
Of
You
course,
know,
of course.
yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like you know, so empathy. It's like that's why you said earlier, like that pattern of like deep understanding of another person is so important because it's like that solves a lot of problems, you know, if you just like took the time to understand someone else, right? You know,
Yeah, we always want to feel like, the problems that we have is like uh like no one else will ever understand it. And the reality is, yes, no one will ever understand it.
yeah.
And instead of saying that as a bad thing, like actually embrace it and be like, that's yeah, it's true. No one, and on the flip side, I will never understand other person's problems too. But that also should mean I should listen and learn and try to empathize. So completely understand, completely agree.
All right, dude. I have a few more questions, then we'll wrap up the interview. Just because I'm baking something, it might, well,
Of course.
it might burn. Like I'm having like observer
Don't burn
freaking.
out a house.
So blast last, anti blast last, supposedly
Oh,
double feminine also. So anti blast last. That so let's look at anti and what that is, and then we can talk about how you
okay.
really, use it or have trouble with it. Okay. So anti blast is organizing your known patterns and concepts into a solution that is ready made that you will present to the tribe when they have a problem. So it's like, oh, you have this problem. Here's the solution. I've already organized it. Boom, here you go. You know, it's the same one because it's like this one thing will fix a lot of problems because it's NI, right? It's like broad. So
Right.
here you go. You know, so have you done any of that or have you not done any of that? Go ahead.
Oh, this is such a hard question, Kendrick. Because it would suggest having blast, right? And a part of me is like, I don't really like to teach. I mean, I love teaching, but I feel like it's unsolicited advice. And I really don't like those types also, where it's like, hey, you're just giving advice. I didn't ask for it. It goes with the whole FI part that I'm talking about. Like, I want to consume first. I want to, like, if I wanted your opinion, I would ask for your opinion. So it probably has to do with more of that, where it's just where I don't really want to give advice, or I don't want to talk about all the learnings that I've had and just like give it to the tribe, and especially if it's like a repeatable stuff, right?
Let me ask you though.
Um,
If someone goes up to you and goes, "Hey, Dararith, can I give you an advice?" They ask you first for permission to give you advice.
mhm.
How would you be cool with that?
It depends on the context and the circumstance. If I know what they're talking about, sometimes I am receptive to it. It's like, yeah, okay, like I've already had processed it. I know about it. Okay, so now I'm ready. Like, come on, give me feedback. I want to know it. But I'm not the
What if
person
it's
who want
completely
to get
left
feedback
field?
first.
What if it's completely left field? But they had do you have a valid point and it's gonna catch you completely off guard?
Well, I mean, if you're giving me all that question, then it's like now you pique my curiosity. Now it's more like, okay, now the consumer wants to know like what is my blind spot? So yes, of course I
Yeah,
want to hear that.
yeah. So it's not
Yeah, yeah,
unsolicited because they ask you first, right? It's like, hey,
yes.
um, I have this thing that I noticed about you. Can I give you some advice? It's not like, you know, like a pure blaster, like just give you advice. You're like, I didn't ask for your advice. Fuck off, right? You know, it's like,
Yeah.
you know,
Especially if it's something that you're working on. It's more like I'm struggling with like with pitching a ball, right? Like with my left hand. And you already know the area you're struggling. You know like what's going on, but you're still working on it. And then someone just like gives you an advice that I mean I guess it might be good because you're working on, but it's more like, you know what, I'm kind of working on this like this I have an idea of how I want it to work. And so if I wanted like someone's opinion, I would probably ask for it. But for the NT blast last, like just thinking about it. The only thing I can think about for blast is I don't know if it's SI or NI or whatever, but are you familiar with bluf, like bottom line up front?
No.
It's a military thing that I believe it originated military, but where they convey the information like the first like sentence or first paragraph, first whatever has to be like the bottom line, like the result up front. So that if they miss anything at all, they have at least got that first sentence. So I try to apply that to everything now. So easier for written communication, of course, like emails, yes, no questions. It helps me to think, okay, no one wants to care, no one cares about my consume journey of like taking them along,
Yeah,
like all
that's
the
right.
proof. Like they just want like the bottom line. So you may see like some of my email stuff. I just ask the question up front, like, can you meet at this time? And then give the detail, like, oh, because I'm on a different time zone, I have this, I
Sure,
have.
yeah.
But you don't start with that. If you start with that, then it's like, especially if you're like a CEO of a company and you got like millions of emails, you're like, okay, I'm gonna sit through and read this whole guy's email. Like, no one's gonna do that. But if you start with like the most important thing, like up front, and then you can fill in all the little details. I think I started seeing like articles and stuff start doing that too, like a news article or stuff online where it's like they catch you with like the headline, and it's like that pretty much has the bullet point of everything, like one or two, three bullet points, and then the rest is just like if you just happen to care and want to know more. So I
Yeah.
like to try to do that more often. It makes me cut out a lot of the noise and filter. And I actually can have that noise too. It just at the very bottom, and it's probably unimportant. They don't want to read it. So I'm not sure if that's like the NT blast, but I know like the blast is more like you just want to get it out, like
Right.
control tribe, like this is what they need to bottom line, what they need to know. So but in terms of it being N, uh I really can't comment on it too much. I think I'm still learning more about how I do that, but I think it's still like a pattern of what is one type of concept that you want to apply to like everything. And this is something that I do try to apply everywhere.
Yeah. Well, I think the bluff is a good concept for sure that you can blast people because it's a good one for sure. Based on your description, I like it a lot. It kind of like reminds me because I watch the NBA, right? So like I'm always going on YouTube and stuff, and people are like the consumers, like the lead consumer, freaking out. Like, why did you put the score in the headline? I'm like that. This I'm like I click.
Spoiler alert.
I click on this video because I saw the score. I didn't, I don't give a shit. Like I want to, and then now I want to see the how it went, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it depends on who, right? So it's like stop putting the score in the headline. I'm like, I'm like, but it's kind of annoying sometimes because I'm a big fan of WWE, right? And a few days ago, like I don't know if you watch wrestling, but I love it. Like John Cena became a bad guy, right? You know who John Cena is, right? Because of the
Yeah,
movie.
yeah. He's seen the
John
movies
Cena
and
became
stuff.
a bad guy in the first time in 15 years. And I was like, oh no, it got spoiled. I didn't even see it. I want to see how it's like.
Oh,
But
I
anyway,
can see how that can be bad for this kind of thing.
yeah.
But if you're trying
Uh,
to like in a work setting, usually it's like
for
pretty
work, it's
good.
good. Yeah.
Wanna, but in terms of like consuming things, you want to take along for the ride and to consume
No, that's bad. That's bad.
it's
Yeah.
like you want to watch the whole Star Wars movie, but you're not going to watch from like episode one to you want to
Oh
watch it
my,
exactly of release or I mean it's arguable, but like
I get so
there's
mad,
some
man.
value in
Those
it.
those those people who read a Wikipedia before watching a movie so that they know already what happened. I'm
Yeah.
like Dave does that. My girlfriend does that. I'm like, stop, stop. What the fuck is this? You know?
Yes, so you understand completely. I do know some people that are more like, I just want to know the ending first. I'm just gonna read the back of the book and find the answer first, and then
Yeah.
I'll fill in the details. I'm
A
like,
lot of
no,
IJs do that. A lot of IJs. My sister's one of my sister's best friend is an ISFJ. She'll read Wikipedia before while in the theater watching the movie instead of like. And my sister's like, "What are you doing? We're watching the movie right now. Why are you reading Wikipedia?" She's like, "I
just need to
want
know
to know
the
what's
answer.
gonna happen." It's like,
But you will know what happened, but you don't get the same effect, the surprise, the oh,
I
this
think as
person
an
betrayed
IJ,
this
they don't want the
person.
surprise because surprise is chaos, right? So it's.
Ah,
But for us EPs,
aren't we like
no,
chaos too? Like, isn't that like EPs also don't like chaos or they thrive in
no, but
chaos?
we're not. But surprises doesn't bother us. It's like
Oh, okay.
it's good because we get dopamine hit, right? So
Yeah.
you know,
Okay, I'm starting to feel more comfortable with time. Yeah, that does sound like me. I do like watching a movie from start to finish, and I don't like it's like don't tell me the details. Let me experience the whole thing from start to finish for
yeah,
myself.
I want to get hit with a surprise.
Yes,
It's
just
part
like
of
everybody else, like
it's part
Luke,
of the
I'm
deal.
your father. Like, yes, I want to hear that.
If there's no surprise, I'll be upset actually at the end of the movie. Like
Yes.
yeah. But anyways, dude, I think my chicken's gonna burn, so I
Yep,
gotta
yep.
get
Oh
going.
yeah,
But
of course.
dude, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. And yeah, in the future, once you've gotten a chance to think about this, happy to do a follow-up with you, a year or two from now. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much for having me, Kendrick, and for taking the time. It's really fun.
all right, take care, dude.
Yep. Bye.